Okay, hi everybody. Happy New Year. Today is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. This is the Kubernetes wg-k8s-infra meeting. I am your host, Aaron Osig-Beard. I'm also known as SpiffXP at all places. This meeting is publicly recorded and will be adhering to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct during it, which briefly means don't be a jerk and be your best self to each other. If you feel like we are not doing that, or if you have a problem, please reach out to me or conduct@kubernetes.io. Okay, we had a fairly light agenda today, but I pulled the room before we started the meeting. We came up with a few things. I'm gonna hand it over to Tim to talk to us about the sort of billing report, and maybe we can just look at the year in review.
Thank you. So in prep for today's meeting, I pulled up the Google Cloud 1-year view of our billing. The total, so I just changed it quickly. Let me change it back. The total that I'm looking at is for the year 2020, January 1st to January 1st, $661,000 some dollars. That doesn't tell the whole story though. The graph is actually pretty hilarious because right up until about July 19th, it's mostly flat, and then it goes enormously large. That was when we cut over the GCR repo, I guess. So if you look only at, let's say, the last 4 months of 20, so it's September 1st, 20 to January 1st of 21, the total there is 470K plus change. So if you roughly triple that, I would estimate that this year we'll be looking at about 1.5 million, which is still well within the credits that we have. So everything is a-okay. And I think it is okay for us to consider new projects in the new year. I know there are some that need doing. And so we've held off a little bit while we were trying to figure out, make sure that we had enough credit. We do. And I think there's no problem proceeding.
I was going to share a copy of the publicly viewable report just to illustrate what you were talking about. That's cool. This is, if you join the wg-k8s-infra mailing list, you have access to this. This part of the year was when we started shifting some of the prow jobs over and we're prototyping with it. This is when we turned on K8s GCR.io and started really hosting artifacts. And this is when we started shifting over a bunch of the release blocking and merge blocking CI load over. So yeah, I feel like
it looks great. Looks pretty much like I would expect it to look. So I think we have headroom now. We can start looking at, I know there's a couple of other release buckets that we might want to try to figure out how to move over next.
Yeah. Stop sharing.
That was all I had to say. Anybody have questions or thoughts on that?
I don't have a specific question on it, but a thought is, something I feel like we will want for this year is the ability to do kind of more granular billing breakdowns. I appreciate that folks like Tim and myself can look at that report and we have the history of what we've been doing baked in our head. But at some point, in order to help more people understand what's going on here and more people manage this, we'll need to be able to break this down more granularly. Maybe eventually down to the level of like per service or per sig. And I feel like Bart had tried to reach out to Justin at some point to get like more access to the queries that we're using or whatever. And I feel like maybe that work stalled out. So I will try kicking that pebble, digging that pebble back up and seeing if we can start planning around that.
So when we did the GCR flip over, Justin and I started doing some data spelunking through the logs to try to figure out if we could produce at least information, if not a report quite of the same fashion, about which images were the most used. It looked early successful, but we both got busy and turned to other things. So one of the things I'd like to turn to this year is to revisit that and look again at those logs and see if we can extract useful information out of it.
Yeah, I agree, and I probably can do some more on that this year as well. And I apologize to Bart, who I don't see here, but I did not purposely ignore him. I just didn't see it. But yes, I think it'd be great to do that. And I think if we look at where the spend is and where the gaps are and sort of drive that. So in other words, like I would argue that we don't really care about the individual breakdown on cloud build when it totals $2,000 a month, $2,000 a year versus on other things which are more like $200,000 a year.
Right. And honestly, given some of the ways that Google breaks down the billing, we may want to adjust how we organize projects and things. It makes sense from an administrative point of view to have like a storage project where we store all of our storage buckets, but the storage breakdown per bucket is harder to extract, whereas per project is sort of already there. And so we may want to rejigger how we, at least for future buckets, how we arrange what we're going to store, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on billing? All right. Next up, Tim, you wanted to talk about Cert Manager.
Yeah, so this has come up twice now in the last 6 months, and basically, you know, we're using Cert Manager in our AAA cluster for everything that wants to do TLS, and occasionally Cert Manager burps for one reason or another. Not pointing any fingers. One case it was us doing things that Cert Manager doesn't support. In the current case, I'm not actually sure why it's burping. So when we're trying to figure it out, I wanted to encourage everybody who is paying attention to services in the AAA cluster to think about their certificates. I don't know who gets the emails. I get an email from Let's Encrypt. I don't know why I get an email from Let's Encrypt. I don't know if it's because I'm a project owner or I'm not really sure why.
I do too. I'm not sure why either.
I do too. When you create your account with Let's Encrypt, you do specify an email, and my guess is whatever email we specified is aliasing to at least the 3 of us and presumably others.
Okay, I don't know what did I specify my personal email? Like, and why is it? How does it know that perf dash should come to me?
It's only I got perf dash too. It's only one email you can specify in your Let's Encrypt account, and it will be in the there's a CRD. I can't remember the name of the CRD, but that will have it configured.
Oh, so did we put like the wg-k8s-infra group or something?
I can actually go look in Git, because hopefully we can Git. Let me have a look.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that's what it is.
Emails which I'm receiving are coming to wg-k8s-infra team private from Let's Encrypt.
Ah, okay, cool. Well, that explains why we're getting it.
Yes.
The one around k8s.io, like I didn't really pay attention to because I'd received so many Let's Encrypt emails from things that had been moved off, and I just sort of let it go until it was almost too late, and then we had a little emergency. And it turns out that Let's Encrypt and IPv6 were not super friendly, and we had to figure out how to fix it. We fixed it. For the current one, I don't really know. I don't know what's going on with perf dash. I don't know Cert Manager well enough to be able to say like how to even debug it. There's no events. There's nothing that looks out of place. It's just all pending. Munners has piped up on Slack, so you know, he's ever the expert and always generous with his time. So I will lean on him one more time to try to figure this case out. But I do want to just plant a seed of like, can we do better in terms of response to these sorts of issues?
Yes, I think we can.
I don't know what the end. I don't know how is I guess what I'm saying.
Well, we could go the approach of having like more granular emails for individual certificates if they're manage the CRDs. Presumably each service owner has a Google group because we're using Google groups to get access to different namespaces within the AAA cluster. And so we could have specific certs go to a more targeted group of people. We lose kind of the more, because there's only a single email address for cert manager, then maybe we lose the more general oversight of like the core group of admins being aware when one of their services certs is about to expire. I don't know if I have a preference, honestly.
Is it a single email for all of Cert Manager, or is it a single email for each certificate?
I actually put a link in the Zoom chat to what I believe is the code. You configure an issuer. You can either configure it at the cluster level or the namespace level. I think you can actually create as many, those correspond to an account with Let's Encrypt, and I believe you can create as many accounts as you want, because I think they restrict based on IP address and domain name and things like that. So they don't really care about the account type thing.
Interesting, but we only get one email.
Well, we only get one email per issuer or per cluster issuer, and you can bind the certificate you're using to a different issuer.
Right. So if we wanted to have general oversight, we'd have to make a new group that was both the private and the per namespace group, which doesn't seem egregious.
I was going to suggest that maybe what we probably want is some sort of report that actually looks at the Kubernetes objects and reports their status. So we're not relying on Let's Encrypt, and we won't have the false positives of like things we dropped.
That's fair.
What's the ingress that we use in this cluster? Because
Google.
I know that because some ingresses, they support like metrics for the expiration of certificates, so it could be something you could have some sort of dashboard.
That's a good question. We could totally try to put that together. I guess the next question is, do we have any volunteers who want to poke at this, whether it's like a cron job report or a dashboard or something? I don't care how primitive it is. Just I don't want to have emergencies, especially over holidays when I'm going, what? I don't know what's going on.
I can take a look into that.
Awesome.
I can also play with that if you want to pair on that, Ricardo.
Okay. I will need some help because I don't know how the AAA works, so I can take a look into that, and we'll ask you some help, Justin. Thank you.
That'd be wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah, we can just always get set up on some random Kubernetes cluster and then repoint it, as it were.
Yeah, and if we need to set up a new group in our back role that allows certificate access across namespaces, we can totally do that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. That was all I had.
I'll just ask the question if we feel like we're over optimizing on one specific use case here. Because this is definitely painful. It happens once a year at the moment.
Twice a year. It's every 6 months, right?
Every 6 months.
That's
every
3
6
months. Let's encrypt it. It's 3 months.
I just thought it was even shorter. I thought it was 60 days, but yes, it's very short, and it's going to get shorter. I think it's going to go down even more.
Okay.
I was going to.
And we're going to be adding more. We'll be adding more certs over time. So it's going to be every 3 months times 10 certs times 20 certs.
And just so I remember, like in the normal case, that shouldn't matter because Cert Manager automatically renews things. This is about making sure that people with sufficient Cert Manager expertise and sufficient service expertise are able to respond to these alerts.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also think what I hope we're able to do is we're able to effectively have a mechanism to every day, for example, look at all the Kubernetes objects that match some spec, extract certain fields, and basically bump that into a report somewhere, right? It's not necessarily going to be very specific. It's going to be adaptable to other scenarios that arise.
All right. You sold me more.
Yeah. It would be nice to just have a report that says, I have 3 certificates expiring in the next month, right?
Something like that. We might have to change those numbers, but yes, the number of days, but yes.
Okay. Awesome. Ricardo and Justin, thank you very much for volunteering to take a look at this. can one of you please make an issue on K8s.io so that we can track this? I did a poor job of preparing this for today, but I would like to try and get us back to putting issues on the board and walking the board, so the agenda for this meeting can kind of build itself. Justin, you are up next to talk about AWS accounts.
Thank you. Yes, there is a long-standing series of PRs that have culminated in this PR, which I think is actually in good shape, which is to automate the creation of the test accounts used by E2E tests on AWS. We've done a lot of back and forth on how it should work, and it currently has the state store is stored in a GCS bucket encrypted with a secret that is stored in Google's internal secret store. And I guess we could share it with other people that need to know, but hopefully not many people need to know. I don't know if it's ready for merge, but just pinging and see if we can actually get some progress on this, because I get pinged occasionally from the people that want to use this, which is mostly Cluster API and the image builder projects.
I can start reviewing this.
Thank you.
Having being guilty for some of the Terraform in this, you triggered me a little bit when you talked about Google's internal secret store. I'm wondering if we could use Google's externally available Google Cloud Secret Manager.
I can put that secret where it's just a secret. We can put it wherever you want.
So I will put this on my queue to review. That's all the specific stuff we had on our agenda. Do y'all want 36 minutes back, or do you want to catch up for a bit? Or do you have other specific things you want to talk about?
I don't know about everybody else, but I actually did no work over the holidays, so I have a pile of things to look at this week. I would be happy to start planning for the remainder of this quarter year in earnest in 2 weeks' time.
That's basically where I'm at. If it's cool with you, though, I just maybe wanted to take 5 minutes, talk about our high-level thoughts for the rest of the year. Because I know there was a lot of consternation over whether or not, like, we'd have credits and how much of this stuff has been migrated over and stuff. And I know before the year closed out, like, Google has recommitted funding to all of this, which is awesome. And as Tim pointed out earlier, with everything you've migrated over thus far, we are well within our budget. But I still think there's a fair amount of stuff to be migrated over. So I plan, I'd started to put together a bunch of issues over, like, all of the remaining google.com projects that we rely upon. Some of them are small, some of them are large, but I'm trying to get us to a punch list of everything that remains to be migrated over. I anticipate there's going to be some interest from some of the release engineering folks that help migrate over some of the CI related projects. I feel like two of the most costly lifts that we'll have to do at some point, and we can decide how to prioritize these, would be scale testing of Kubernetes, so 5,000 node tests that currently block the Kubernetes release. Excuse me, and GCS artifacts, so more than just GCR. So as always for me, I'm interested. I feel like the group's original mission was, like, eliminate google.com as a blocking dependency, so the project can run itself. And I want to really focus on closing that out this year.
And I would add maybe to that list, learning from some of our past mistakes and adding the intermediate abstractions when appropriate, like not exposing direct buckets, which was a giant pain in the butt for the Helm folks, right?
Yeah. There's another thing that would maybe be helpful as we start to think about reorganization and stuff. Is that a lot of this stuff is put together with Bash. Less of it is done with Terraform. And it would be cool if there's somebody who's interested in reorganizing this stuff with Terraform. I am super in favor of that. I feel like I'm a public skeptic of it. I think it's more an acknowledgement of my own lack of experience with Terraform idioms and whatnot. But as much as I'm interested in that, I still kind of feel like the majority of what we have is in Bash. And so if I'm adding stuff to stuff that's already in Bash, I'm probably going to keep staying in Bash rather than like piecemeal migrating stuff over to Terraform as we go. But I'd be really supportive of something that's more of a concerted effort to migrate us to Terraform.
And I will admit that I actually started on a major refactoring of the Bash into more Bash. And then I realized that I would probably get chewed out for doing so. And so I paused that work. Like you, I'm not a Terraform expert, so I just don't know the idioms and the norms and the best practices there. If we can establish a better way to do it with Terraform, I'm fine with it. I expect that the way I would have laid out the Bash now, with all the the several years of hindsight, would look a lot more like the Terraform. It would be a lot more sort of project oriented and purpose oriented rather than the way it is current. Like I would align it in completely the opposite direction than we have done today. But I love me some Bash, and I will not let that drag everybody else down.
And then one other thing I'll mention, the release engineering folks aren't here. I know that there was an interest and possibly even a KEP around trying to break out all of the k8s.gcr.io like artifact management stuff into a separate repo, which I am in favor of, but I have a little bit of skepticism about making sure that we have things appropriately tied together so we don't have things drifting apart. But I just personally would be interested in that, since the vast majority of PR traffic to this repo right now is image manifest updates. So it makes it kind of difficult to see like what else has been going on.
Totally. So Stephen wrote that KEP based on a conversation that he and I had had. I don't know what the state of it is. I'm happy to help shepherd it. I don't think it's particularly complicated. I would love to hear what your concerns are, really.
I just remember that I had them. I don't remember what they are right now. So anyway, those are my hopes and dreams. I feel like Antonio mentioned he definitely wants to help us with all things IPv6 last year. I know Arno has been doing great work for like Triage Party and other services in the AAA cluster, and has been looking to get a Prow staging instance up. So I feel like we've got a lot of cool stuff to work on this year. And I'm super psyched for it. But if there's something that somebody watching this or somebody here would like to suggest instead, let us know. All right. I've held you hostage for 5 minutes. Thank you all for your time. Really great to see you all. Happy Wednesday.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye, folks. Happy New Year.
Bye all.